Tomorrow morning, I will reunite with my mother and little sister for the first time in 31 years. We have not been in the same physical space. We have not shared the same physical space since I was 12. My sister was barely 2. My last memory of my mother was her handing me a jacket on my way to the airport to America and saying, "Baka malamig doon. It might be cold there." I don't remember giving her a hug. I don't remember giving her a kiss. There was no time really for any of that. My last memory of my sister is accidentally dropping her while holding her. I remember she had a little bump on her head, a little bruise. I also have a little brother who was born after my mother sent me from the only home I ever knew in the Philippines to live with her parents in California. He is immediate family, but also, unfortunately, just someone I know from video calls and photographs. A couple of years ago, during COVID, my mother's green card was finally approved after decades of waiting to get in line the legal way. My grandmother, a naturalized US citizen, petitioned for her. My sister, who has built a successful life in Manila, enough that she can afford to take vacations internationally, is joining her on a tourist visa. This whole event, this decades-long reunion, feels bigger than language. I'm beyond excited. I mean, what else could I be? I'm also relieved after decades and decades of waiting. And if I'm being honest, I'm also scared. How do you say I miss you to people you've been missing your whole life? How do you say I miss you to people, your mother, your sister, your family, you haven't felt or touched or smelled or seen in 31 years? What will be my first words to Mama? See, what gets lost in the narrative of migration is that we're dealing with human beings. The politics of it, the sheer politics of it, leave no room for complexity and contradictions. I don't think Mama and I ever imagined it would take this long for us to reunite. Surely not 31 years. If it was traumatic for me as a 12-year-old being raised by a single mom, my father had left us when I was 3, I can only imagine how unbearable it's been for her to be separated from her first child. To survive my separation from my mother as a 12-year-old, then as a teenager, then as a young adult, and now a middle-aged man, I had learned to divorce myself from my emotions, to put up my own walls, create my own emotional borders. The way I've handled this experience was to control how and when I feel. I don't know about you, but I watch videos of immigrant families reuniting on YouTube, or family reunion scenes in films like The Joy Luck Club, when the sisters finally meet at the end, and The Color Purple, when Celie and her sister Nettie finally reunite, searching for feelings that I'm missing inside, searching for, connection. I've been sharing my story, my very specific immigrant story, for almost 15 years now. In a way, being so public about being undocumented and now being documented about this whole thing has made it more bearable. Because whatever I'm going through, somebody else is going through it. Somebody else has already survived it. What's that great James Baldwin quote? You think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read or see or hear. Connection is comfort. Connection is essential. After I arrived in America in August 1993, I would write to Mama about my new life. I discovered this letter I wrote her, typed out when I was in middle school. It's dated December 25, 1994, Crittenden Middle School. Dearest Mama, what's up? I'm trying to use slang. How are you guys doing? I hope all of you guys are doing fine. I just hate the weather here sometimes. It's too cold. I'm freezing. We even have to use the heater to keep us warm. I'm sorry that I didn't have a chance to write you guys often enough. I'm so busy with my studies. It's really hard to be a 7th grader. It's like every week we have a new project due. I joined many school clubs like Tween Time, Spanish, drama, school newsletters. But when I reached high school, we grew apart. It's hard to be a parent when you're not present. And then I learned that I was undocumented when I was 16, trying to get a driver's license. And then finding out and realizing that I had been put in this position without my knowledge, being undocumented in America. And I resented my mother for putting me in this position. In the same way a teenager fails to recognize the larger systems at play that make such positions even possible. I grappled with my relationship with my mother. Why did she send me away? How could a parent, any parent, do that? Was it about money? That I was sent here to support the family? How did she deal with missing her child? I was too young, too naive to realize that what she had done was what countless mothers and fathers and parents had done before her. She wanted a better future for me, and she decided that that was in America, never realizing that we would be separated for this long, that our American dream would be more complicated, more compromising, more heartbreaking than we had imagined. I collected substitute mothers of all races, ethnicities, backgrounds. I depended on them. I felt loved by them. They provided human connection that I was missing. They provided presence when my mother wasn't present. When I told my immigration story to insist on the complexity of the undocumented immigrant experience, there wasn't anyone I wasn't willing to engage. I'd been on Fox News, I don't know how many times.
What would happen if I showed up in the Philippines as a non-citizen there illegally and started saying, you know, hey, Philippines, I hate your immigration policy, and by the way, I think you're racist?
Well, first of all, I was 12, so I'm not quite sure I would be asking those questions.
And then whenever I would go on Fox News, I would get lots of mail, some of them hate mail, and some of the very most hateful mails would end with, aren't you missing your mom? If you love her, why don't you go back to the Philippines? And of course, I couldn't explain in the email, in my response, that if I were to go back to the Philippines, there would be no guarantee that I'd be allowed back here to America, which has been my home since I was 12. So what do I love more? This country that's now my country, that's not my country? Or my mama, who is there waiting in line to come here? It wasn't until I was making Documented, a documentary film about my life in 2012, that my mother and I meaningfully connected again on Skype. I am about to Skype with my mother for the first time. I've actually never done that before. I was similarly a wreck before that reunion. I sent a camera crew to film her in the Philippines.
Ito dati yung daily kakainan namin. Dito rin dati yung crib niya, yung baby siya.
And there was one filming me here. And I had not been planning to have this. That documentary actually began as a project documenting undocumented young people, the dreamers.
Hi, my name is Vargas.
My name is I'm an undocumented immigrant from Colombia.
I'm an undocumented immigrant from Germany.
From Nigeria.
From Mexico. From Peru.
From Brazil.
From Armenia.
From Mexico.
And then as the film kept progressing, I started realizing that the film didn't make sense if I actually didn't tell my own story. And my own story is incomplete without my mother.
Ma? Yeah?
Ton!
Ma.
Ton! Ton!
Kumusta na, anak?
Ang puti-puti mo pa rin.
Ito pa yung gilay mo,
Anak! Uwi ka naman na, makita na tayo.
Oh, malapit na, malapit na. Malapit na. My life doesn't make sense without her and her choices. My mother and I now connect more regularly, with my sister serving as a kind of a bridge. But I still can't help but keep her at arm's length, which is much easier when she's across the Pacific Ocean and not going in for a hug. The truth is, I'm not the only one who lost a mother. Mama lost a mother too. Lola, my mother's mother, left the Philippines and moved to America in 1984, 3 years after I was born. Lola had seen her only daughter, my mama, no more than 6 or 7 times in some 40 years. Quick visits of 2 to 3 weeks every few years. As the decades have passed, their relationship, like my relationship with mama, is almost solely digital. First on expensive international phone calls, remember those? Then iPhones, and now Facebook. When I think of what I've lost, I think of what they've lost too. A mother who left her daughter. A daughter who sent her son away. Soon, very soon, for the first time in decades, we will share the same space again, breathe the same air, and be able to touch and see each other. I hope this will allow us to heal. Because this cross-generational loss has been painful. Yes, migration is beautiful. You hear that. You see that slogan. Migration is beautiful. I understand why we say that, why we need to say it. One of the reasons why we need to say that, why we need to say that migration is beautiful, is because it helps make it bearable. And migration is also painful. To leave what you know, to have the courage to leave what you know, to risk everything, including your own family. Watching the news, living in this anti-immigrant era, not only here in the United States, but around the world, you'd think migration is all about walls and borders and mass deportations, what politicians and propagandists keep hammering about, as if human beings are nothing but political problems. Migration is also about separation, about abandonment, about grief, about trauma, and ultimately, about courage. I remember first hearing the word courage while watching this woman named Maya Angelou on the Oprah Winfrey Show.
Let's talk about courage. Because
I was one of those immigrant kids that after school, I would rush back to the house and sit in front of the TV so that I could learn to speak American. And one of those things was watching the Oprah Winfrey Show. Dr. Angelou, I remember her saying, said, courage is the most important of all the virtues, because without it, no other virtue can be practiced consistently. You can be kind and true and fair and generous occasionally, but to be that thing time after time, you have to really have courage. You have to have courage to love someone. I know my mother loves me, so much so that she had to find the courage to let me go, to help ensure that my life could be better than hers. The moment I see her, I'm terrified that she will see that the 12-year-old son she left loved her more than the middle-aged 44-year-old son she's now returning to. I'm afraid that my love may not be enough, that the decades of separation have rendered my love shallow. So originally, when I was planning this reunion, I invited all of my people, my adoptive moms, my adoptive sisters, so that the moment my mother sees me, she could see all these people and feel all their love. Somehow I thought that having them all there, the literal embodiment of the love that have kept me here, would somehow transfer to my mom. But then I had a conversation with my mother and my sister who said, all of this was really, really overwhelming. And if it were at all possible, the only person they wanted to see was me. And Lola and my mother's brother, our tight little family. So I'm honoring their wish. You're probably wondering, why am I sharing all of this? I'm sharing all of this because for the most part, we are not discussing immigration in this country in human terms or with context or nuance. We must counter perceived life with real life, with the spiritual cost of destructive immigration policies. This is what it means to center immigrant stories. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I might melt into a puddle. I've had a dream where I fainted. I might feel, I don't know, nothing. I hope you circle back to watch what happens though.